It's significant, no, that the first official visit to be hosted by President Marcos is the Prime Minister of Malaysia. What can we explore? Balita ko, we will be exploring stronger defense ties with Malaysia. What exactly can we achieve by strengthening our relations with this administration of Anwar?
Right. First of all, pag-usapan natin si Anwar Ibrahim. No, he's a very interesting character. Kung maalala niyo, he has been very passionately following politics in the Philippines, I think more than any other Southeast Asian leader. As far as I know, he has written a lot about the legacy of the Aquinos in the Philippines. He has been a great admirer of the Philippines People Power Revolution for quite some time. And he cited Aquinos, from Ninoy all the way to Benigno Aquino, as an inspiration for himself when he was running for the Prime Minister. But of course, now he's the Prime Minister, and he's coming to the Philippines where you have Ferdinand Marcos Jr. as the president, right? So I was really curious about how this is going to go. But of course, he is a seasoned statesman. He knows how to deal with other politicians. He knows how to deal with a situation like this. I heard that even President Marcos Jr. at some point said, na parang, pati siya, it took him a very long time to make it, back to the Malacanang, in the same way that, it took a very long, effort also for Prime Minister Anwar to make it there to the office. But obviously, we know the circumstances are kind of different. So I found those reports quite ironic. But nonetheless, we know that when it comes to Malaysia, very complicated ang relationship natin with Malaysia, no? So I did a book back in the day, book chapter on WikiLeaks, for instance, yung mga leaked cables ng mga American embassy, etc. And it was showing that back in the 1970s, the Malaysians were begging the British to beg the Americans to ask the Marcos administration back then, for instance, not to invade them. So clearly, 50 years ago, there was a very real threat, as far as the Malaysians were concerned, of potential military confrontation with the Philippines. And they were worried whether they could hold it together, right? And obviously, we know that there were a lot of reports suggesting that Malaysia had an interest in the conflict in Mindanao because that bogged us down and prevented us from moving decisively on the Sabah issue. But in the more recent years, alam natin when it comes to our relations with Malaysia, yung isang malaking aspeto dyan, yung OFWs, we have a lot of overseas Filipino workers there. We have a lot of Filipino citizens who easily pass the porous borders between, Malaysia and the Philippines, and that also creates a lot of complications, but also a lot of opportunities. Pero alam din natin, in fairness to Malaysia, especially under former Prime Minister Najib and former President Aquino, there was a lot of coordination on dealing with the problem in Mindanao. And we knew that dealing with the problem in Mindanao, the peace process in Mindanao, the Bangsamoro issue could not be fully resolved if we didn't have the buy-in of Malaysia. So the direction of bilateral relations has been going well despite the hiccup that happened, of course, nung sumugod yung mga supporters ng dating Sulu Sultanate dun sa Sabah ng Malaysia back in the day. But I think overall, there's an understanding that we don't want to provoke Malaysia on the Sabah issue as much as perhaps some people in the Philippines want. At the same time, on the issue of OFWs, we want to have some understanding there to make sure that we protect our interests there. But more importantly, after Marawi, tumaas na po yung cooperation between our militaries and law enforcement agencies when it comes to doon sa issue ng counterterrorism and piracy, especially because of what happened in Marawi. And now, obviously, we're also talking about West Philippine Sea and South China Sea because Malaysia din may claim din sa West Philippine Sea and South China Sea. And interestingly, Malaysia learned lessons from our arbitration award. So if you look at it, back in, I think, 2019, if I'm not mistaken, December 2019, Malaysia filed an extended continental shelf claim to the United Nations to also protect its sovereign rights dyan sa South China Sea and West Philippine Sea. So Malaysia also got a lot of inspiration from the Philippines standing up to China, not under President Duterte, but under President Aquino. And now under President Marcos Jr., we see, once again, we're standing up to China. So I'm sure Anwar Ibrahim is taking note of that. And perhaps there's going to be more coordination in the West Philippine Sea issue.